The reason why we're all here today is to talk to Todd Wilkinson, the third generation owner of Reg Wilkinson's Menswear. So Reg Wilkinson's Menswear has been selling confidence in Sudbury since 1947. His grandson, Todd, who's with us today, joined the team back in 1994 to bring another generation of retailing and vision to continue the proud family tradition. As a third generation business, now run by Todd, the store has been a fixture in downtown Sudbury for over 3/4 of a century. Thank you so much for joining us today, Todd.
Thank you, Rafi. I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. So today we're going to be doing a bit of an interview. So I'm going to be asking some questions to Todd. Now, if the people here have a question you want to ask to him, put it in the chat, put it in the Q&A. I will relay all those questions to him at the very end when we have about 10, 15 minutes left. Until then, let's get into some of our questions, Todd. Okay, so firstly, let's just start with the beginning. How did your family start the store 75 years ago, and what was the original vision behind it?
Well, Reg's original vision when he was the youngest of 12, he always had hand-me-downs, Rafi, and he just told himself through his boyish pride that he was just going to own his own store someday and be able to have access to all new things, and he would never wear hand-me-downs again. So we've included that in some of our marketing over the years and some anniversary pieces, and it's just a really great story because back when he was born in '03, there was a lot of big families, and to be the youngest of 12 must have been really hard on him.
Mm.
So he ended up having a bit of a passion for fashion, I'll call it, and he worked for numerous companies in North Battle, Saskatchewan, in Ontario, and he was working for the Seymour family up in Kirkland Lake, which is where my dad was born. And the Seymour family sent him to Sudbury to open a store with one of the Seymour sons back in the early 40s. And after about 5 or 6 years of that, he decided to go on his own. So it all started with that youngest of 12.
That's awesome. Yeah, I can't imagine like being the youngest of such a large family. So as somebody like yourself who was raised in and around the store, what was your earliest memories of the business and what was your very first job there?
Well, I remember hanging out in the store. The clientele was a little bit, mid to high end. So they didn't really need, any teenagers hanging around too much. And the store was about a third the size. So there wasn't really a lot of room for me. Um, but I just remember getting to know my grandfather as best as I could. And he lived to be 87 years old. So I'm really happy to say that I got to know him well, and I can do my job with a little more pride knowing that he, started the business, and I'm able to carry the torch for not only him, but my dad. So having said that, I never did work here. I never worked in the store. Although born and raised in Sudbury, I did go to Laurentian University, and I think when you're in that position for so long and you graduate from university, you just want to get out of town for a
Mm,
little bit, right? It's kind of a
mm,
natural progression. So, um, in a lot of ways, that helps a lot of young people. Anybody listening out there, they may have experienced it already, but what you want to try and experience is work for some other people and learn some other skills, marketing, travel with jobs so that you're more proficient at things when you start your own business or when you take over a family business like I have. You just can bring more to the table. I'll put it that way.
mm.
And that's exactly what happened to me. I worked away for 10 years, and then my dad approached me to get involved in the business because they were seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, or they were
Mhm,
seeing a situation where they had to find somebody to help them because they were getting older. And I was
mhm.
working in BC at the time, and my dad just approached me, and made it easy for me to get involved in the business, and it was good timing for my wife and I at the time because we were ready to start a family and didn't want to do that so far away. So it kind of happened a bit natural that way. And then I felt better getting involved in the business because I felt with my 10 years experience somewhere else, I could
Mhm.
really be more help and I wasn't such, burden on, the staff and the management that it was already in place here. So it just helped.
I'm curious, when your dad approached you with that proposal, did you kind of feel it coming because it went from your grandfather to your father? So were you always kind of like expecting that question to be asked?
Yes, yes, of course, because when you're at that age, when you're in your, mid 20s, you kind of feel obligated to help. But my
Hmm.
dad was very smart about it. And this is a really great lesson. Don't put pressure on your kids to get involved too early. It often happens naturally, but as soon as you put pressure, you take the chance of it going sideways. And I can't stress that enough. I belong to a 10-store buying group, Rafi, and I've seen that happen. And it's really a shame when it happens because it would have happened better if there wasn't the pressure at too young an age. You have to give, you have to cut your kids some slack and let them spread their wings. I guess I'll call that for the lack of a better term, and let them see some other opportunities. And often there's a lot of opportunities out there that aren't as much fun than, getting involved in a family business. So you just have to let them find out on their own, or they're never happy coming back.
Yeah, I have that a lot with your parent with my parents where they kind of have this idea of like where they want you to go, and then you kind of end up going where like you didn't want to go that direction, but you kind of ended up going in that direction anyways. My parents were admins and project managers, and they thought that, my sister and I would go off and go do crazy stuff. And we did for a bit, and then we came back and we became project managers. So it was just
There we
made to
go.
be.
There we go. And you had all that experience from the other jobs to impress
Exactly.
your parents.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm very curious to hear, like, I know that, you were kind of always expecting this to happen, but how come did you ever have the idea of starting your own store and starting completely from scratch?
Not really, that was a good way for you to word that on earlier because I think it's just so expensive to start anything that if you have an opportunity, you got to take it,
Hmm.
and some people would say to me over the years, "Oh my God, I can't believe you're working with your dad. How can you do that?" And I guess my honest answer is, if you can't work with my dad, I think there's something wrong with you. And the older I got, the smarter my dad was. You ever heard that story before?
Yep.
And it was so true because you're not as mature as you think you are when you're 30 or 28. And and take advantage of the wisdom that you can find from your parents. We had an amazing partner that was here when I started. His name was Ivan Selensak, and he took me under his wing more so than my dad did. And he showed me the ropes, and he was a great salesman. He was a real gentleman. He was a real great people person. And I just felt so lucky to join the company with the help of my dad and Ivan at the helm because it just gave me a bit of a quick start. And it just made me feel happy that I made the right decision. I dragged my wife, all the way from BC to back up to Northern Ontario. She's from Southern Ontario, and she's like, "Where are we going? What are we doing?" And I had to really give her the sales pitch and say it's all going to be great.
So
So
when
no
when you
regrets.
so when you came on as the owner, were you still working with your dad and kind of being co-owners? What was kind of like the hierarchy there?
No, I told my dad I was going to come back under one condition, like not a really condition, but because we had other partners, I wanted to make sure I put some cash on the table. So I bought in at 24%. Ivan was 24%. My dad was 48%, and my mother was 4. She was like the tiebreaker, right? And that was really important to me because I didn't want to be this silver spoon, new partner. I wanted to have a little bit of say on where the business was going because our store was only half the size then. And as soon as I got back to Sudbury, I realized that we were kind of feeding 4 mouths or 4 families out of a bit of a shoebox here.
Mm.
And we weren't really the king yet, not that we're, that's not the best term, but that's the term in the industry. Like when you have lots of competition, you do your best to try and be the best at what you can do and be the king go-to store. And so I really, in the back of my mind, wanted to try and do that. And so you can't do that without having some cash on the barrel. So I'm really glad that I did that. That always doesn't work out that way, but it's just because I'd been away for 10 years, I was able to do that. And my dad was more than happy to share some of his shares with or sell his shares with me because he was trying to slow down. So
Yeah.
my dad quickly agreed to that, and that just made the deal happen a lot easier. And then you just have a little more confidence in joining the team.
Yeah, absolutely. Because now you have a little bit more skin in the game. You're not just like the son of the owner. You're like, no, no, no. Like I own part of this business. So kind of going more into that transition from owners. So when the business was created, there were long-term plans that were set by, your grandpa and your dad. So when you took over, did you have to revisit or update any of those goals?
Yeah, those goals are always important to keep in front of you because as the previous owners, like with my dad and Ivan, you get sidetracked, you don't have your vision changes. You may not be thinking about technology that can help make your life easier, like computers and e-commerce, the internet, that kind of thing. Our first challenge was the store was too small. So on a weekend, a customer of mine came in with sledgehammers. We knocked down a wall, and we had previously not renewed a lease for a tenant that was next door to us, and we just expanded. We doubled our space in like the first probably 3 years that I was here, and that's an investment. You can't just do that overnight. You have to plan for that. So that that was a really big help in allowing us to offer the selection that we wanted to offer in order to compete better with some of the other players that were still in the market. Because there was a lot of menswear stores downtown Sudbury over the years. Like I have a list of them, and your viewers may not agree with me, but there was 30 menswear stores 40 years ago downtown. And I'm including the likes of Eaton's and Woolworths. They all had their little menswear departments, right? But the likes of like the Man Shop, uh,
Mhm.
John Farino's, Lazar's. There was so many that closed before I was even born. But there was quite a bit going on downtown because there was no New Sudbury, no South End. So
Mm.
everything happened downtown, and I'm sure your viewers have seen pictures of the downtown in the 40s and 50s. Like this is a busy place, and everybody dressed up. Everybody got dressed up to go to church.
Yeah.
People got dressed up for their big weddings. There was even a change of wardrobe at the weddings for the wedding parties or the groom at least. And
Mhm.
so fashion was a bigger thing back then, and so that was one of our goals was to always keep an eye on what we were going to do next to try and be the king, right? And eventually, eventually it worked. But what helped us is the lack of succession with other stores. Other stores um, just retired, and it's a bit of a shame because I'm a big believer in competition, and I really wish there was more even today because it just keeps everybody on their toes, and you never want to rest on your laurels when you don't have that competition in place. It's a really good lesson to yourself as an owner. Um, you just want to stay hungry all the time, no matter what happens around you with your competition. It's still a good idea to keep an eye on them if, because I'm sure the viewers out there are from all different types of markets. You want to know what they're doing. You want to keep an eye on their marketing. You want to check them out on their social media platforms, but you always just want to keep your head down and stay hungry.
I love that because I feel like I meet with some entrepreneurs and they're like, this doesn't exist in Sudbury, so therefore I'm gonna get like all of this demand and my product is gonna be so popular. But it's really interesting to hear that like how healthy competition is and that it actually does help you grow. It pushes you, it motivates you.
Yeah, yeah, you have to take advantage of that. It's a really good push, and it helps if you enjoy your work. You have to enjoy your work to get up and push every day. I'm really lucky. I can't do what I do without the team effort of the staff that we have here. I'm so lucky. I have my sister that is my bookkeeper. She also works on the floor. Her name's Corey Merwin. She's been here longer than I have. Imagine that.
Yeah.
Uh, she was our bookkeeper before I moved back from British Columbia. So to have her still here is such a treat and such a bonus, especially when I'm not in the store. It's nice to have family still here and keep our vision in place, right?
Mhm.
And then we have, for example, we have our own in-house master tailor. So I can sell all the suits and socks, belt, underwear on the shelf, but if I can't tailor it, then I'm in big trouble.
Yeah.
So Demiano Perry, he's been here 40 years this year. He's in his 80s. He's the best. And again, like it's a big part of our service.
Yeah, yeah, no, the tailoring is something that often hear is very like underappreciated, and that once somebody does get something tailored, it like opens their eyes. Then they realize like, oh, this is actually really nice.
Oh yeah, it is an art, like, and no one's going to school for that anymore. So that's
Yeah.
one of my little concerns I have going forward is you can't find them. You have to. Other guys in my industry have sponsored tailors out of Croatia and other parts of the world and had them
Um,
come to Canada and they've signed, agreements to work with them for 5 years at least. And then you have to take care of that guy in the north, make sure he
yeah.
stays here, right? So that's kind of, one of the options that stores like us have. Otherwise, yeah, you can't get our manufacturers to pre-tailor stuff.
Yeah,
It's
no.
pretty much impossible.
No, and having that custom tailoring service for the business is really nice because I'm not sure, aside from like Moores maybe, like how much tailoring there is. I think like aside from Moores, you guys are probably the only ones.
Yeah, well, there's Tip Top is does a nice job. We bump into
Mhm.
those people at our different shows, and like this weekend, we're going to a bridal show at the over here on Brady Street at the oh gosh, it's the Steelworkers Hall.
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah, it's at the Steelworkers Hall, and we do that every year. And
Hmm.
the organizers put on a great show. They get like 200 plus brides through there. It's really well marketed. And that's just one of the ways where we don't rest on our laurels and we go and spend like 5 hours on a Sunday, introducing our programs, right?
Yep. That's awesome. So speaking more about the fashion, because the fashion never stops in this industry. So, how often do you research new products and decide which ones are the ones worth investing in, right? Because you got to kind of think about like the fashion trends and what's going to be popular in the spring and in the summer. And then, how often do you guys add a new collection?
Well, that's another great question. You're getting into my other hat that I wear because I'm also the sole buyer for 6,000 square feet. So we go to a handful of shows every year, twice a year. So we're very seasonal. So I buy 6 months in advance. So I just came back from a week in Toronto back in the middle of February, and I would buy for next fall. So
Yeah.
we go to a big show in Chicago for a few days. We go to Oakville for a few days and we spend a few bucks. And then all that stuff gets compiled with all the other Canadian orders, and then that stuff gets shipped from Europe or pick a place to
Mhm.
Canada, to a big different warehouses in Canada, depending on the label, and then that gets redistributed to us 6 months later. So what we try and do is we try and change up about 15 to 20% of our labels about once a year so that we don't get stale. Some
Mhm.
labels, have their timelines and tipping points where we don't need to carry it anymore. And we know we're going to upset some customers, but it's important. We're going to make more customers happy than customers that we upset, because generally the people that we're thinking we're going to upset, they're kind of happy with what we bring in eventually anyway. So
Yeah.
that's crucial. And that I could see working in a lot of different industries for your viewership today. Like, don't get stale. You have to be aware that your customer is growing as well, and your customer wants to see, you know, different programs, different colors, different styling. So no matter what industry, there has to be that little bit of change, or you could easily grow old with your business, and that's a big mistake. Don't rely on your young staff to keep your your industry or your location or your product young, because uh, it's not their business. So you still have to empower them, but you don't rely on it too much. You have to listen to other people in other markets. Like what we do is we belong to a 10-store buying group, Rafi,
Mhm.
across the country, and all these stores are in different markets, so we're not competing with them, right? And so they
Mhm.
don't mind sharing ideas with me. I don't mind sharing ideas with them. They've tried a fashion label, maybe 6 months before I jumped on the label, and they're able to tell me if it worked for them or not.
Mhm.
And a label like that could work for me, but didn't work for them, so I can't prejudge it too much, right? So that 10-store buying group, it's called the Fashion Senate Group, and they're stores from Halifax to Calgary. We had a store in Victoria at one point, but he retired. So with those stores, it's crucial for me to attend those meetings. I really get pumped by seeing, their successes and their failures, and I see how the way they market their store. We did a fashion magazine with that buying group for a few years, not too long ago, but we've gotten away from it because of COVID. And these are just great guys and gals that have been running their businesses for a long time. I'm one of the older ones. I'm the youngest guy in the group, but I'm one of the older stores. So it just I brought that up because if your viewership can find a similar buying group, or if they can't find it, try and attend some of the webinars that you're doing, or some of the webinars
Mhm.
that the chamber are offering. All those are, even if you just learn one thing in the hour, it's so beneficial. It just gives you a little kick or a little push, to try something new, and trust somebody else's success to bring it to your business, and that could be that could make a big difference for them.
Yeah, that sense of community between entrepreneurs is so important because I feel like sometimes new entrepreneurs are so focused on the competitive edge and beating out the competition that they don't realize that sometimes that competition, if as long as it's, not in, all in Sudbury, can actually help you and feed you a lot of ideas and inspire you.
Exactly.
So I want to kind of touch more about, you spoke earlier about, trying to stay, don't depend just on the younger generation or on the younger staff. You have to kind of do a bit of work yourself. So the store's been open since the 1940s. And I just can't keep thinking in my mind of how many like cultural shifts the store has gone through, from the post-war optimism all the way to the digital age. Each decade brought new fashion trends, technologies, and customer expectations. So, how did you and the previous owners adapt to these major changes and influences?
Wow, there's a lot of history there, and I can't attest to know exactly what all the guys did over the years, but I know that When my grandfather left the business, he turned to my dad and he said, "Can you do me a favor on three fronts, on three things?" He said, "Can you never change your service with the TD Bank?" Okay, I'm getting off topic a little bit, but don't move from the TD Bank was number one. Keep getting the door for all the ladies when they leave the business was number two, because my grandfather just thought that chivalry was just so great, right?
Mhm.
And number three, don't forget that you're in the people business, because we all kind of talk about it. I'm in the clothing industry, but I'm really still in the people business, because if you treat people the way you would like to be treated when you go into any door anywhere, then you're going to be successful, because it's really hard to find now. COVID was really hard on a lot of industry. Um, I'm going to use the term old school. You can't find old school anymore. You can't find that caring touch and that attention to detail that isn't that hard to maintain, but if you lose it, then you're in trouble. So that was a trend that I'm sure happened long before my time. My dad and my grandfather just treated people well and serviced them properly. And that's kind of timeless. I have to say that it's a bit timeless because it still works today. And our customers come to us from all over Northern Ontario, and and even now after COVID, they'll say to me, "Boy, am I ever glad you're still here." And I'm like, "Whoa, I don't know sure how to take that." It's just they probably wouldn't expect me to be here this long, but I feel honored to be able to service Sudbury as long as we have. It's a treat for us as well as it's a treat for our customers to shop here, because we're making a living by it. And if you can make your living by something you really enjoy doing, it's a treat. So um, that I'm sure has stayed consistent, Rafi, that whole service. And then, paying attention to the trends really helps. It's like still a big part of our business. So you have to do your reading. You have to you have to follow trends, like even on TV, when you see different stylings come and go with double-breasted and single-breasted and three-button and two-button and side vents. And we even tackled the ladies industry for 12 years, and we had to close it during COVID, just because everybody was in such trouble, right? Um, so we had to keep an eye on the ladies trends as well. So I would think that over the years, they just listened to their customer. And if the customer was looking for cuffs, they started, tailoring cuffs for them. And we had the flexibility to give them whatever they wanted by having an in-house tailor. So you just have to roll with the punches on what the industries throw you, and try and get to know your own individual markets as best as you can. Because what flies in North Bay doesn't often fly in Sudbury because of their smaller population. They're not as diversified. They don't have as much blue collar, whatever the reason being. You have to know your market in order to have the longevity.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's a good example with the North Bay because even if you think like prom season, right? Like every guy needs to get a suit for prom. Well, Sudbury has a lot more high schools than North Bay would. So just there, like, well, there's that changes the demand, right? There's only so many students that are graduating. So if the community is even a little bit bigger, that could be, four more high schools just there.
Yeah,
I
good
want
point.
to,
Like we feel bad for North Bay. Like there's my empathy coming out maybe. Like we just did a trunk show in North Bay last fall at the Gateway City Brewery, which is a great space. If anybody wants I'll find a nice microbrewery in North Bay, I'll give them a little shout out. We had two docs that are partners in that brewery, and they invited me and my staff to do this trunk show, and we went for one whole night there. We brought all brand new goods. This was last November, and it made me feel so good to share our store with North Bay for one night, like for 4 hours. And they so appreciated. We had a pretty decent turnout. We're going to do it again in May. It's just so great to try and share our love in another market, because I can't clone myself to open another store there, but it's not really that far for them to come our way, but they do.
And it's again that sense of community, right? Like instead of thinking like, oh, North Bay's my competition, how can I beat them out? It's like, no, 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 no. We're not competition. We're in two different markets, but we can help each other and work together and uplift each other.
Sure, sure. Well, they don't have a menswear store there, so I didn't feel like I was, cutting anybody's grass, right? So it worked
Oh,
out.
yeah, that's perfect. So your we've chatted about this before, but the understanding that we have with the history of the businesses downtown is that you've outlasted pretty much every business except maybe like the banks. I think like we've come down to you're if you're not the oldest business in downtown, you're one of them. So why do you think that you specifically stood the test of time compared to the others? Does it really come down to just having like that succession plan, or is there something else that you think played a role?
Well, that definitely helps, but I don't think that's the end all. I think what helps, I remember this clearly in my notes because the location also helps. When you're a little mid to high end in anything you do, you have to make it easy for people to buy. And prior to COVID, the downtown was thriving a little bit more, and it's slowly coming back. The arena is going to help and all that, but another webinar. But it's important to take a really close look at your location. I'm talking to your viewership now because we're lucky. My location was picked for me. Okay, I can't take all the credit. Okay, but I think take a look at your individual locations and see if you can do better, even if you own the building. See if you can do better because you might be just not convenient and not following off a very important saying that I have. And you have to make it easy for people to buy. And a prime example is I just saw the Overtime Bar move recently from Notre Dame over to the Kingsway. I drove by there yesterday on my way to my dealership, and there was no room in the parking lot yesterday during that snow. And I
Yeah.
said, wow, I'm so happy for them. They took a chance. And you know what? I'm exaggerating. They're going to triple their business in a short period of time just by making that decision. And don't try and make it yourself. Throw it by your staff, throw it by your spouse, throw it by your dad. Like, just so you don't think you're going crazy, because sometimes your ideas can be crazy. So you have to take a chance in life, and location has helped us over the years because we did a survey. We sent we sent an email to our top 100 customers and said, if we move to the South End, would you still shop with us as much as you do? And the majority of those people, and they were from Espanola, they were from the Valley, they were from New Sudbury, they were from the South End. The majority of them said, don't move. And I went, wow, I'm a little bit surprised with that.
Oh.
And I challenge your viewers today to give that some thought because it's like a restaurant. Location, location, location. Make it easy for people to buy. Offer them that great service. Try and be on the floor as much as you can because if somebody walks on one of your staff, let's say they couldn't find what they want, you have to
Mhm.
ask the right questions and find out why didn't that person leave without product, right?
Yeah.
And your customer, your customer off if he comes once and you don't have it, and he comes twice and you don't have it, there's a pretty good chance it is proven he's not coming a third time. So if you
Yeah.
don't fix that in your own little way, you're
Yeah.
you're going to lose him for life, and it's really hard to get. It costs twice as much to get that guy back,
Yeah.
right? Than it is to keep him. So I'm going to say you got to listen to your customer and find out from your staff when someone doesn't buy something what they were looking for, no matter what the market you're in. And
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 I
and
feel like we could talk about that forever.
yeah, that's a sales technique, right? But
Yeah.
and I'm not perfect either. Sometimes we can't give the person what they want, or sometimes we're a little bit too pricey. But at least you can send them somewhere else, or help him find it somewhere else, and then you still get a brownie point, and he might come back again when he gets a new job with more money. You never know.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
exactly. You're creating that relationship with them so that they know that like, you might not have it yet, but you're still helpful. You're still trying your best, and that really improves the relationship.
yeah, and I'm
So,
finding that's not happening with some of the shopping that I do. I'll go somewhere, can't mention any names, but I'll go somewhere, I'll go, wow, they failed twice today on me. You know, they
mhm,
they didn't like sometimes I'll say, well, Rafi, you know what? I know you're in a hurry and I can't find it right now. Give me your number. I'm gonna text
yeah,
you when I find it, you
yeah,
know, but give me 24 hours. And then I just saved Rafi running all over town in a snowstorm because the wedding's this weekend. So sometimes we don't have it at our fingertips, but with the couriers now, we can get stuff so quick that we just want to keep you happy.
yeah. Why, this is kind of going off of my questions, but why do you think the customer experience is maybe less important nowadays? Like there's less of a focus on how staff treat their customers and the follow-ups and so on.
Well, there's a couple things that happen there. There's a lot of owner operations that don't have their owners on the floor, so they're not able to correct the little details that are happening on the floor. And if you give someone an inch, they're going to take a mile. So if you have young staff or lazy staff, they don't care about your bottom line. They're just going to keep being lazy and not doing their job as best as they could. And if truth be known, I don't put my staff on commission because they would have starved yesterday in that snowstorm. So I
Yeah,
just pay them a
yeah.
little bit more, and I work with them. So I'm on
Hmm.
the floor, like I'm here Saturday. I have customers come in and say, "What are you doing here today?" Well, today's game day. This is when all my shooters come in because they're too busy working all week, right? So you have to be you have to be helpful to your staff in your helpful way, in your nice way, polite way,
Hmm.
and make sure that they're growing with you and with the business so that those crumbs don't fall through the cracks when the customer comes in and expects better service.
Hmm.
So it's all about coaching them, training them properly, sending them to a webinar or some kind of
Hmm.
sales training. I sold fax machines in Toronto when I was 22, right out of university. I could do no wrong because fax machines were like $2,800 in 1988. And I went to the 3M sales training in London, and that
Ah.
was like unbelievable. It was all feature advantage benefit selling, and some of it was all role playing and a little bit hokey. But if you can become a good salesperson within your business and don't rely on just your salespeople, you're going to take it to the next level a lot quicker.
Yeah. Okay, I have a few more questions, but I want to make sure we leave time for Q&A. So I'm going to ask my one last big question. If anybody here has questions for Todd, now's the time to put them in the chat in the Q&A. And once we get through this question, I'll start reading them out. So going back, you've noted before that a succession plan has been the really big key to your success because the business can outlast the owner. And that's why, you've been able to be open since the 1940s. So, for our viewers here, what makes for a strong succession plan, and when should you start writing one? When should you start planning for that?
You got to start like yesterday. It's like planting a tree, you know. And who should I be the one to talk because I've had two really great succession plans come and go during my tenure to help me out later. And that happens, like sometimes you're the person that you think is going to run with the ball has a hidden dream that they end up following and you can't do anything about it. So that happens. And unfortunately right now, there is like I'm big space here. I'm like almost 6,000 square feet. So it's really hard unless I get my inventory way down and maybe my square footage and my rent different to attract someone who really wants to go to the bank or borrow money from family to get involved because I would make it easy for someone to get involved. I do like my dad did. I'd have a 9-year buyout so that I'm not so strapped and I still have a life, right? Because that's exactly what my dad was a gem when it came to being fair about me taking over his shares and my other partner's shares. So that worked out over time, and that was a bonus. But I think your viewers have to make sure that they're going through a little bit of staff so that you don't get stagnated with old staff that are never going to buy you out.
Mhm.
That could easily happen. I've seen it. And so I'm giving your viewership a little bit of a push right now. Like if somebody's, if somebody's not pulling their weight, or if somebody's not showing any promise and you thought they might, like you might want to make sure you even if you're a little staff heavy for a while, like I'm not saying you have to kick someone to the curb illegally. I'm saying you have to be interviewing people on a regular basis if you're ready to start your succession planning, and find the right person. And it's like buying a house. Sometimes you have to pay a little bit more for what you really want, you know?
Yeah.
And if you have somebody that's doing a great job for you and they're showing some promise for succession, take care of them. Give them those little treats that your dad gave you, or that you can afford to do for them, because good people are hard to find, and you really need to start working on it yesterday. And I said this to the chamber years ago, hope is not a plan. And I wish I had a really great succession plan in place right now, because then I could talk from the heart a bit more. But I'm young. I'm only 63, so I got a couple more years in the tank to help it work out. But I personally was hoping that that would have happened like 5 years ago, because I really want to help that person get their wings. I
Yeah.
want to be here to help them get on their feet and make sure that they're successful.
Yeah, like my family and I, we say a lot, like you're setting yourself up for success. So it's like you have to think long term about like when I get issues down the road, I need to have a plan. And that's what really helps with like the setting you up for success. So like you were saying, if you have somebody that like a staff member that you think could go far, set yourself up for success and start training them so that down the road, then they'll be ready to kind of take it over.
That's right.
Okay, so while we have some time, I had some questions that maybe don't relate so much to longevity, but as I give some more minutes to our participants, if they have any questions, I have some dying fashion questions for you, which is what has been your favorite era of fashion to work in, and what has been your least favorite?
Oh my goodness. You put me on the spot now, Rafi. Like, um, I think I think now is better than ever, because people have been in their sweatpants too long, and now they're coming to me for a made-to-measure suit for their wedding. They're
Hmm.
coming to me because they haven't bought a suit in a long time, and their wife is really giving them a hard time to get rid of that three button that's no longer in fashion anymore, and find something new that fits them properly. So now is like a little renaissance of fashion. And part of my forte is making suits and sports jackets and pants for people, and they don't have to be that tough to fit. So, um, the three button era, which was back in the 90s, the practical 90s was way too practical for me. There wasn't enough color. And the three button styling made everybody look shorter than they really were, because the button placement was too high. Because when the button placement's here, it gets you really squatty. And then there was cuffs with three buttons. So I didn't like cuffs. So as you will remember, and it happened with women as well, that skinnier leg and the non-pleats, all that like non-pleat is so much better. So, and that's all continuing now. Pleats are sneaking back a little bit, but I don't know if they're going to stick. That's a European thing right now. So I'm going to say right now is my favorite, because I'm seeing the renaissance, and I'm seeing the pent up wedding business that has fueled that. That's so exciting for all those people falling in love. And I'm going to say the worst was probably like that 80s, 90s, where it wasn't that exciting, and Canada was trying to do their own thing and not listening to Europe as much.
I I'm always fascinated by how Europeans view like lazy fashion. Like their equivalent to our sweatpants and hoodies is like blue jeans and a nice crew neck, which I just find hilarious. I lived in Europe for a time, and seeing like the teenagers walk to school, it's like they would not be caught dead in sweatpants or like a stained hoodie. Like it was such a different attitude towards like properly presenting yourself constantly. And if somebody broke from that norm, it was like all eyes were on them because they just stuck out like a sore thumb.
Sure. Hey, well, we're living proof here when you spend all day with me, you'll see that young people that come back in, they'll say, "Hey, Todd, you were right. I started dressing up a little better for work, and I got this promotion over this other guy that had been there like 3 years longer, but my boss never liked taking him to those meetings because he never had a jacket on." And I'm like, okay, great, you're proving my point because I was a headhunter for a couple of years in Vancouver as well, and I had to coach these guys on how to dress up, or you're not going to get the job. And it
Mhm.
just works. And I'm tooting our own horn here a bit, but the young guys now are starting to listen to me. Don't If they don't listen to their dad, at least listen to their garmentologist.
I've had that with my own husband, like not all men are like really taught like men's fashion and such. So he always just kind of like wore whatever he had. But now he's been getting hand-me-downs from his Italian grandfather, and he had really, really good taste. And, took really good care of his clothes. So now he's ending up with those clothes. And the way he like lights up when he puts it on, because he's like, oh, this, I look good. And it's so much fun to be like, yeah, like dressing up makes you feel good. And sometimes when you're having like a bad day, wearing a great outfit just gives you that bit of confidence boost.
Yeah, good point.
Okay,
It works quite a bit.
I have a great question from the chat here. From your experience, what key characteristics do you look for in an employee to ensure they contribute to long-term success in a business like yours?
Wow. Well, one of the first things I look for is personality. You got to have some personality when you're dealing with as many people that we do throughout the week. And I will hire somebody that has zero menswear experience, even zero. This is tough for me to say, but like sales experience, because sometimes I'd rather teach them the way we want to be taught, not what you learned in the mall. And
Yeah.
so when someone has personality, it really helps. Um, it really helps the scenario when it comes to our industry because people that are buying from you want somebody with some jump and some confidence in what they're doing. And they're spending a lot of money, remember. So, it doesn't pay to spend all that money if you're not well coordinated, the person wasn't trained properly, he was a bit boring to hang with for an hour. Uh, he didn't follow up when he said he was going to, not organized. So
Hmm.
that personality really helps. And we've been lucky over the years with that personality. And that person has to be a team player because if you can't get along with our team, there might be something wrong with that person.
Hmm.
um,
Hmm.
and I'm a very open door owner. So if someone has an issue, they can always come to me. So we're always trying to find someone that is outgoing, team player, and has
Yeah.
some personality.
I heard that from one of my first bosses at like my first, adult job was exactly that was like sometimes you would rather train them from the ground up because they don't have any bad habits. They haven't been taught how to do things wrong, so you can train them on how to do everything right. And another thing that I find really important with staff is also like determination and grit. Like if you're getting corrected and you take it so personally and then it like you drag it with you throughout the entire day, that's hard. If you have a staff that's saying like, "Thank you for the feedback. I'm on it. You're so right. Like I'm going to work on this better." Then you're kind of like, "Oh, well, they're super receptive to feedback. This is going to be so much easier to coach them and train them now."
Sure. You can usually tell that like your viewers that are out there, like you can tell in your first interview if someone's got it or not, you know?
Hmm.
And don't waste your time on anybody that you got to work too hard on because there's a lot of fish in the sea out there. You just got to find them, or don't be afraid to put it on your Instagram. Don't be afraid to ask, friends and family if they have any,
Hmm.
graduates or kids looking for work, and that's sometimes some of the best success stories.
Exactly. Okay, I have one last question from the chat here. Going back to your dad and the succession, did your dad, besides from, giving you some training, did he ever make a kind of manual or guide that you could refer to like after you became the owner?
Um, Not necessarily. What had happened is right after I joined the team, I joined the Fashion Senate group, and we have manuals for our world. I didn't need to rewrite the Bible, right? So
Mm.
I don't crack the whip and make my staff read that cover to cover. But after going through that myself, it just kind of set the tone a little bit. And the manual that I have, it needs probably to be a bit updated because we do some things different now. But
Mhm.
I think it could cross over to a lot of other businesses just to help your staff stay focused and
Mhm.
be on be focused on what the management expects of you because it's human nature to drag your heels if the management goes on a holiday or starts to spend a month in Florida, stuff like that, which is very common. So at least if you have it on paper, then and something goes sideways, then there's some recourse.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, well, thank you so much, Todd. We're getting a lot of love in the comments here, saying how much they appreciate your advice, especially the old school and being more customer focused. Um,
Sure.
I just have
My
one last
pleasure.
question here. So, how
Sure.
do you want your business legacy to be carried on whenever you are ready to step back?
Wow. Thank you for asking me that question because I sit here after being here for 32 years. We're going to be 78 years old in August. And Sudbury, doesn't matter what industry you're in there, Sudbury deserves the best. Don't forget that. Sudbury
Exactly.
deserves the best. Just because we live in the north doesn't mean the services that you provide out there aren't important and aren't important enough to improve and expand and just grow in selection because all along for me to stay hungry, I always say, okay, what else can I give Sudbury that no one else is giving them right now? And um, I want you to take that with you as well because we deserve the best in the north. And I just hope that our store can continue. Even if it's not 100% succession, someone might just run with the ball for me without complete ownership. I just may not work
Mm.
as much. I may help them do some buying. I may have to, you know, uh, plan on, putting my talents back to work certain periods of years so that the store can run with that fuel, right? So I
Mhm.
just hope that our service and our level of quality can continue in Sudbury so that we're not all shopping at Walmart in 10 years from now. Now, it would be a
Yeah,
real shame. Or people, it would be such an inconvenience to have to, shop in Toronto all the time or shop in the mall, because it's a different quality, right? So
yeah.
I'm really hoping that that answers the question properly.
I think that's the perfect answer and also a perfect way to kind of like end this webinar on this high note and a great piece of advice that everybody here can kind of carry on with their day with. So with that, like, thank you so much, Todd. Like,
Thank
this
you,
has been
Rafi.
really fun. It's really fun to, chat with like really like businesses that have been open for so long and have such a rich history and getting to showcase them here. A lot of people in the chat are saying thank you. They said, I have one comment says, I love the Sudbury Pride and how your services provide for the community in a truly stylish way.
Oh, thank you much for that and the positive feedback. And look forward to seeing everybody soon.
Yeah, so now if you guys really love Todd, you have to go shopping at his store. There's no excuses anymore. Look at like some Father's Day gift cards, bring your boyfriends, go have a fun experience. Like Todd said, don't go to Walmart, don't go to the mall. Go do something that's going to support a local business and people who have, this 75 years of experience in this industry.
Thank you for
Okay,
that,
well,
Rafi. I appreciate the plugs, and I wish everybody a great season in your respective businesses.
correct. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great day. Stay safe out there. I'm hoping the snow will start melting today, but we'll see. And just, have a great day and best of luck with your own endeavors and businesses. Bye, everyone.